1983, the American video game industry, previously booming, had crashed. Atari, a titan, had fallen, primarily due to poorly made games such as the Atari port of Pac-Man and the Atari game E.T. It got so bad that they had to bury their stock in a New Mexico landfill just to get rid of their stock. Many were convinced that the industry would never recover. However, things didn't exactly turn out that way. The Nintendo Entertainment System came along and single-handedly saved the industry. But it wasn't because of the video games, as the ones we're trying to hear. It was because of the marketing. This is a story of how Nintendo single-handedly saved a dying industry using nothing more than industry and product design. Let's start from the beginning. This is the family computer, better known as the Famicom. It was released in Japan in July 1983 and quickly grew to success, becoming the best-selling console by the end of 1984. The hardware capabilities were unheard of for a console at the time. Most consoles were able to display 6 to 8 colors, while the Famicom had 52. It could display 24 simultaneously. Nintendo wanted to bring the system overseas to America. Nintendo had already had success in America in 1981 with the arcade game Donkey Kong, so they knew their way around the block. Nintendo made plans to allow Atari to distribute the system in America under the name Nintendo Advanced Video Game System. However, it was actually Nintendo's pal Donkey Kong that got in the way. You see, Nintendo had given Coleco, one of Atari's competitors, the right to put Donkey Kong on their ColecoVision console. They later gave Atari the exclusive right to put it on their home computer systems. However, Coleco's computer line, the Coleco Adam, was backwards compatible with ColecoVision, and thus was automatically capable of playing Donkey Kong. Not only this, Coleco decided to demonstrate this exact thing at the exact same computer electronics show that Atari and Nintendo planned to finalize their deal at. Atari refused to sign the deal until this was sorted out. A month of red tape later, and America's industry had taken a nosedive. Consumers were no longer buying video games, and so Atari no longer had any interest in selling them. So now, Nintendo was on their own. They redesigned the system and dubbed it the Nintendo Advanced Video System. They noticed that video games were not very popular anymore, so they decided to remove game from its name to make it seem more like a computer. It had all the bells and whistles: infrared controllers, a tape deck capable of reading and writing, keyboards both computer type and musical type, wireless light guns, and even allowed you to write simple programs in BASIC. Surely, something this impressive would blow people's minds, right? Well, no. When Nintendo presented their new and improved console at their January 1985 Consumer Electronics Show, the response was lukewarm at best. They may have removed game from the title, but it was still a game console, and the general consensus was that if it was a video game, it wouldn't sell. So, Nintendo went back to the drawing board. Removing game from the equation didn't work. Everyone saw through that. So this time they took a different approach. Remove video. After all, it wasn't games that weren't popular, but specifically video games. Toys were still as popular as ever. Nintendo redesigned their console to look completely different from all the others on the market. First, they turned it sideways. Most consoles had their cartridges inserted into the top, so you had theirs put into the side. Second, add a cover so the cartridge couldn't be seen while playing. Remove the bells and whistles, give it a paint job, and voila! The Nintendo Entertainment System was born. It was specifically designed to look similar to a toy version of a VCR, especially when it came to how the cartridge was inserted. But with all the bells and whistles removed, the system was kind of boring to look at. It would need an eye catch to get people's attention. Something to make it look more like a toy, like the toys that existed at the time. Something like Transformers, or Voltron, Or maybe it's something that's sort of like the movie that came out, Terminator, just the year before. This is Rob, or the Robotic Operating Buddy. Rob was a peripheral produced alongside the NES, and was typically included as a pack-in. There were 2 games designed for play with Rob, Stack Up and Gyromite. Rob was impressive to look at, and served almost as a mascot for the system in its early days. That being said, most would agree it was not very fun to actually play with. The movements were unbearably slow, and the 2 games that it came with were the only ones ever designed for it. The important aspect of it was simply how it looked. Riding on Void's popular robot-based toys, such as Transformers and Voltron, Rob, and by association the rest of the system, fit in perfectly at toy stores of the day. By including Rob with the system, it solidified the NES's reputation as a toy rather than a video game console. And in the 80s, one place was the palace of toys, FAO Schwarz. Nintendo decided to do a test market of the NES in New York City, a rather strange choice due to the city's size. Most test markets are done in moderately sized cities to keep costs low in case the product is a flop. It was the president of Nintendo America, Minoru Arakawa, who decided on the Big Apple. Nintendo wanted to make it so that anyone who walked into FAO Schwarz would notice the system above all else. To market the baseball game, they had actual MLB baseball stars, Ron Darling and Mookie Wilson, at the stand to advertise it. Rob made his presence known as well, with his face plastered on the side of every box and models of his head strewn about. But beyond the scope of FAO Schwarz, Nintendo wanted to change their marketing to feel more open and honest. This mainly shows in their packaging. As an example, let's look at the cover of Real Sports Tennis for the Atari 2600. Looks pretty impressive, doesn't it? Let's compare that directly to the game itself. Now, for the time, these graphics certainly aren't terrible. However, there is a large disconnect between the game itself and the box art. Now, here's the box art for Tennis for the NES. Well, that doesn't look all that impressive, it's just pixel art. But here's the game. It's exactly the same. Now, when people pick up the game, they know exactly what they're looking at. It lends more credibility to the game itself, the box art, the merchandising, the whole system. It was hugely influential in how this game was marketed. All the games on the system were marketed in this manner, both graphics on a starry background, and most importantly, the Nintendo seal of quality in the corner. This was a big deal for Nintendo, and they even made ads to prove it.
Want to unlock a world of wonder and excitement? This is the key, the Nintendo Quality Seal. The seal assures you the best games, the best graphics, the best accessories. Without the seal, it's not Nintendo.
A few months after the initial release of the NES, Super Mario Bros. Was released in America. It was an instant success. However, this success would have never been possible without the effective marketing in the months prior. It was the marketing that allowed the system to rise to success, and it was the marketing that kept Nintendo at the top.